The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, Concordant Body, Appendant Body, Masonic Authority, or CraftsmanOnline.com.
Welcome back to the Craftsman Online Podcast, the only Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge in New York. I'm your host, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. We're going to be diving into the old question, well, that depends on what is this week. First, if you joined us on Patreon, man, we thank you so much. Your $5 goes so far in helping us expand on the mission of the Craftsman Online Podcast, bringing Freemasonry to those who have been interested in it. And what do you get for that? Well, ad-free episodes and access to our full back catalog of subscriber extra episodes. That's where we get extra time with some of our guests. Like this week, we'll be talking with Brother Amer on his Search of Light. You can listen to that on Thursday. Get started with your free 7-day trial. There is a link in the notes for this episode, and we thank you in advance for checking us out on Patreon with the Craftsman Online Podcast. All right, this next brother brings a pretty cool background. He's got a traditional philosophical background as an educator, teaching the theory of knowledge and computer science in the New York City area, and one of my favorite brothers in New York City to catch up with. His article, In Search of Light, was recently published in the winter edition of the Empire State Magazine. Let's welcome him on. First time, Brother Amer Abu-Houran. Welcome to the Craftsman Online Podcast.
Thank you. I am humbled.
You open your article with a line that every Mason is a seeker of light and that you can relate that light to truth. Before we get into like the Masonic view of all of this, what is it about truth that makes it so hard for people to define it or even sometimes agree with truth being truth?
Sometimes we think, we don't pause and think about the day-to-day, even the vocabulary that we use. But we need to pause and reflect. So, for example, let me ask the listeners to do this exercise with me real quick. Try to think of something that you know to be true, that you don't doubt it at all. Like in your heart, you know that it's 100% true. Now, let me ask you this question. How do you know that that thing is true? Try to find or think of an answer. How do you know that that thing that you identified in your head is true? Is it true simply because you grew up with it? Is it true because your family or close ones believe in it too? Is it true because it's something that is testable, that you can actually in a scientific way test it and verify the result? Or is it true because you feel it? You have a gut feeling inside that tells you that this is true. Or is it true because you observed it? You saw it in your eyes, you tasted it maybe, you felt it, you saw it. Or is it true because most people believe that it's true? Or is it true because people of authority and credibility say that it's true? We need to pause and think here for a second. Let's just imagine that we have an apple, okay, a red apple. So if I looked at it, I would say that that apple is red, that apple is spherical, it's shiny, it's maybe crunchy, and so on. So what I just did there is I made truth claims about that apple. Now imagine that you have a friend that is colorblind, and then you ask him to make some truth claims about the apple, just to describe the apple. They might say, oh, it has a dullish green. We're looking at the same thing. Now, somebody might say, you know what, this is an easy solve problem. We already stipulated that that person has a faulty instrument, like there's an anomaly over there. So the apple is actually red, and he is, he has a faulty vision of some sort and so on. But let's raise the bar a little bit. And let's just imagine that all of us are actually colorblind. Then how would we know what the actual color of the apple is, right?
Right.
So in the end, we can actually come to the conclusion that this is actually not a truth problem. This is a knowledge problem. Because the apple itself is red regardless, but it's our perception, the way that we have access to that information. That's what determines, or the belief that we have of that apple is the one that determines where the problem sometimes arise from, truth.
It's an interesting truth experiment, for lack of a better term. I've played this game before where it's like, how would you describe the color blue to a blind person? And you're like, oh my gosh, like think about it. Like looking up at the sky, like do you describe it as water? Do you describe it as salt? Like how do you describe colors? So it's interesting you're getting your perspective on shaping truth this way. What I also found fascinating was your background. So you're a computer science guy. You're into the theory of knowledge. How did you develop this pursuit or this even truth experiment that you just put us through from your professional background into your personal life? Can you walk us through those steps?
Yes, my professional background is in computer science and artificial intelligence and coding, programming, and all of these things. But basically, I am an educator. So although I pursued that, like my undergrad degree was in computer science, but then once I discovered my own passion, which is to make a difference in other people's, that's when I realized that I want to become a teacher, and in education. So things slightly shifted, although it's basically the same path. So I focus more on the education aspect, and I've been always fascinated about when you watch a debate, for example, like it's in the pursuit of truth. But is a debate the right platform to pursue truth, or is it just to see whose ability is more, or who is well articulated, or has more debating skills, and so on? Philosophy itself has always been fascinating. And right now, I teach like different classes, computer science, university level degree to high schoolers and other things. But I also teach theory of knowledge, which is short for TOK, which is an essence of what we're discussing right now.
Gotcha.
Which is really interesting to see how students think about their own thinking. We really need to have that skill to think about our own thinking, to think about the way that we learn, the way that we approach literally life.
Right. I'm thinking, Amer, there were two things that I want to talk to you about as a Freemason. That was you're going through your degrees and you're first attending lodges and you're hearing us say these words. For example, what was your thought the first time you heard the word truth as far as like a Masonic principle?
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting about Masonry and about truth. We are not, like, truth is not something that is going to be revealed in a way that is like, this is truth, okay, that's it. Can you give me another secret or another thing? It's not that. We are actually called for something that is beyond. What I believe is that Masonry doesn't look at truth as a definition or like from a philosophical approach. It looks at truth as something, as a way of living. It's something that you approach. It's something that it's kind of like, the saying, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
So basically, it's about living in that truth. So when we say, for example, brotherly love, or when we say charity, or when we say being there for the community, are these merely words or slogans, or are these things that we live by and abide?
The other thing that fascinated me was you talked a lot about logic with the theory of knowledge, and as we did the little truth experiment. Well, if this is true, then this must also be true. Logic also is one of the things you hear a lot about in the Fellowcraft degree as one of the seven liberal arts and sciences that we apply in Freemasonry. Where did your mind go when you were sitting there as a Fellowcraft going through that second degree and you're hearing the lecture and you hear about, and logic relates to this?
If I were to pause for a second and reflect and go back, it was almost like a surreal moment over there, trying to understand at the beginning, hearing things for the first time. But then once you go back to and reflect upon, you begin to see that, you know what, this is like a storytelling. This is more of something that is approached in a living way rather than in a more theoretical approach or like scientific approach. 1 + 1 = 2. Then you separate this from that, and so on and so forth. Because we are talking about life, and life is something that is bigger than its own definition. It's something that is worth living. So for me, and even like later, because at the lodge, We do also invest heavily in education, where we support our brothers and so on, to understand the journey and do these amazing things. It's a chance literally for us that things when they click, it's like almost you can see a light bulb
Mm-hmm.
ahead on your head or whatever. That light bulb actually still lights. It's not something that you discover and learn and that's it. It's something that you unveiled to you, even though that you went through whatever text or ritual or ceremony or lecture, so to speak. It's really fascinating. And I want to encourage also, for example, the listeners, if they are in town, if they get the chance to visit the Grand Lodge here and see the amazing artwork. It's like literally telling the story. Sitting in the lodge room, for example, we meet at the Renaissance room, which is an amazing, amazing room. So sitting there and just like making the connections towards everything that is there on the walls, that's a journey by itself, journey of the mind.
Yeah. And I think you could do that. I mean, I won't argue. I am partial with you. I believe I'm totally biased. Grand Lodge in New York has some of the most beautiful lodge rooms within the Grand Lodge building. And I'm super envious of all my brothers in the metro area that get to attend. And that is your experience every single time you go to lodge. Because it's breathtaking for those of us coming to visit for the first time. But you do bring up a good point that, when your mind tends to wander during those exciting business meetings that your lodge has to have every couple of months, look around and question some of these things that we have all agreed upon as truth and take those other angles. And that little moment of self-reflection, I think that's going to be pretty special. It's the Craftsman Online podcast. We're super lucky this week. Our guest is brother Amer Abu-Houran, and his article is called In Search of Light. I want to get into some of the Masonic ideas that you explore, because we talked about philosophy, the philosophers, the different ways to understand the truth. And you touch on all of this as well in your article, the perspectives that we all bring into things. I want to get to when it comes to practicing Masonry in everyday life. And truth can be a really hard thing, especially, and it's tough for me when you had mentioned before, you turn on a debate, or the debate could even be two separate televisions, both carrying the same live event that is happening in front of you, and you have two different perspectives that are happening. How do you apply this truth principle, or this truth experiment, as you laid it out, in everyday life when you have two people in front of you talking about the same thing, but from completely different perspectives?
Actually, it's a very interesting take over here. Because if you want to look at, for example, at philosophy, I mean, we're not going to, just focus on philosophy, but it gives you a good way of thinking. There are like two schools of thought regarding philosophy and the truth. There is the coherence theory of truth and then of knowledge, and then there is the correspondence theory. In the coherence theory, it's like they say that truth is something that makes sense in your own system. For example, if you say that the grass is green, I've seen grass, I've interacted with it, I know that the color is green, it makes sense to me, and so on and so forth, so this must be true. But if I live in an area, for example, I don't know, where it's always snowing and I never got the chance to even see what green is, that truth is nothing to me. There's no connection, there's nothing in it. So it's like as if things make sense only if it makes sense within an order or so to speak, a coherent thing. There's another school of thought that says truth is a matter of correspondence. Like, let's just say that the Knicks played yesterday and they won.
We know that's not true.
No, come on.
Sorry.
Not a Knicks fan?
No, I am a Knicks. It's just, I know that there's truth behind every joke.
So we can know for sure if they won or not by, for example, checking the results. And that is the correspondence. So the truth is true whether you believe in it or not. So going back to your question, when you said that sometimes, when you're watching two different debates or two different perspectives there. And in fact, actually, this is something that I always encourage my students to to think about. For example, you have heard, of course, confirmation biases and so on and so forth, right? Like, for example, if I believe in something, and let's just say that I claim that, hey, I want to study and learn more about it so that I can come from a stronger point and perspective. And if you look at the, so to speak, the resources of where I want to study from or read articles of or whatever, if they are chosen based on my perspective, then they're just going to affirm what I already know. But do I have the courage? Do you have the courage to see the other perspective, to see it as it is? I'm always honestly fascinated by judges. You know, we have a lot of brothers who've been judges and so on and so forth in that system. But how would they? Because they know what the law says, they know what whatever happened, like in any situation. But then they try to see it from different perspectives, so that they can reach a conclusion, which is a decision that needs to be made, or a judgment, or a call for that aspect. Not many people can actually hold two different truths that contradicts each other at the same time. Most people, they just like want to choose something that they believe in, whether something that confirms whatever they know, or something that doesn't really shatter their existence, so to speak, because of everything is built on our own morals, our own values that we take. But do you have the courage to see the other perspective? That's something to think about. And also at the same time, also going back to your question, when there are different perspectives, because what is a perspective? You know, perspective is like a point of view, correct?
Yep. Competing
like,
viewpoints.
And you know, for example, since we mentioned judges and courtrooms and whatever, sometimes you may have more than one eyewitness that they witnessed the same incident or the same, but each person has their own take on it. And sometimes it contradicts each other.
Yeah,
You would wonder, like, why? I mean, you both witnessed the same action, but how come you have totally different perspectives? And this is what you can take a look at this as something that is confusing, or something that is enriching. That we can enrich each other by our own diversity. Now, let's talk a little bit about computer and 3D graphics. Like, if you have a model, like let's just say that I have this and I need to scan it in 3D, so I would have different shades so that I can have a complete image.
So you could replicate your iPhone or your iPod case.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, at least to have it so that I can rotate it and see it, and from different shades, different perspectives, and so on.
Biases. I think that was the word you were trying to use when we were talking about we all have different viewpoints. Especially, I found it interesting you talk about judges. I never really considered that they have to consider all the facts of the case and what's fair for both sides while the argument is literally being argued in front of them. Is it okay to have a bias? And when does having that bias kind of cross the line of fact, truth, and untruth, or alternate fact?
That's a very, very good question. And honestly, when I think about that, do we have biases? 100%. But it's not about that you need to take away your biases, because you cannot do that. You are built in a certain way. I am built in a certain way. I have my perspective on life based on my experiences, the things that I went through, and not necessarily only the things that I went through, the things that I saw other people going through. You know, we learn not only from our experiences, but also from other people. But I think it's about the awareness of these biases, because you cannot take them away, but you can actually just realize that they're there, acknowledge their existence, and then try to see whatever you're trying to see. It's like, for example, like, you know, there's like in computer science, there's a problem that we cannot really come up with a true random number. Like, the random number, we cannot really, because nothing is really random. So, because if you program it, you can trace it, you can trace the algorithm back, so you can predict. So that's why in order to get sometimes a random number, we tie it to something in real life, for example, an electron or something that happens, or maybe a temperature outside, and then take that changing factor as input because you cannot really predict. And then from that, we can reach a random number or something.
I feel like that's the reason why those stupid CAPTCHA forms exist on websites, is they're helping you guys with the randomness of things. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that just came to mind.
No. There's another theory over there that you're actually training and helping AI by doing that solving the problem, like the machine learning. But that's a different problem.
But sometimes, as you're saying, like even when you're trying to perfect something, and I think that's the point you're getting to, you still have to go out to nature, into the real world, to find the randomness that is everyday life. And I love how you're talking about, I totally agree with you, that our own perspectives are shaped by the experiences that we've gone through. And this is what I love about Freemasonry. And I did want to get to like tying this together, right? Is that when you get to be around a group of other like-minded men who have nothing really in common with you, except the fact that you're Freemasons and you've shared this experience of becoming Freemasons and all the things that make brothers. But when you hear their stories of life, those alternate inputs are now building your database, let's say, of life. And now your circle has gotten your perspective has widened so much more.
100%. 100%. Although technically we shouldn't say 100% because what is 100%, right? but basically, I agree with you. When I look at my brothers, like, and this is, I'm sincere over here. When I look at my brothers and the way that they build me and I build them, the way that we build each other and the experiences that we put on a table, I have nothing but appreciation like for these. And you know the phrase that we stand at the shoulders of those who came before us?
Yeah.
I believe in that. I believe in it. Like the fact that we are standing now is because somebody else actually did their part and beyond. Like our lodge, for example, it stands because there has been real men, upright men who actually did the work, who actually persevered. And that's why we are actually here today. And this is why it's really wise to be humble, to recognize that you are part of something that is bigger than you. And your contribution is that it's a small part for something that is bigger than the total sum of its parts. And this is what I find attractive about Masonry, is that you have brothers that walk different paths of life, and to reach a way that you can actually share and learn from each other, that is valuable. You cannot just put a price tag on that, and it's something that that I appreciate, is the fact that when I sit, especially with brothers who have been in the craft longer than me, you always learn from these guys.
Not only are you talking about truth, but you also write about humility through faith. And it's interesting because light and truth are also kind of tied to that part. And in Freemasonry, we know that we talk about the greatest order of all, the great architect of the universe. So how does having this awareness of humility, faith, light, and truth, how does this kind of help shape our pursuit of quote unquote perfection or being better in everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, and you can see it, by the way, evidently sometimes in different meetings, where you would see that the most experienced person is often the most silent one in big groups and big meetings, because they analyze, they hear, they reflect on their journey and so on. So it's like there's a quote that says, the more I know, the more I realize, the less I know. Think about it for a second. The more I know, the more I realize how little, how small, how less I actually know, because we live in a world that is so bigger than us. And this is where humility actually comes in, because through faith. Because when you believe in something that is bigger, when you know that no matter what you do, you're a single, and this is, by the way, maybe this is a personal philosophy for me, but I believe in the rebel effect. Like, yes, I am a single individual person. What I can do more is like if you put like a little rock in a or like in a pond, or you will see the wave, the ripple effect, and they grow. And this will make the motion or the move for maybe another particle, another thing to move along in the same frequency, and so on and so forth. This breeds humility, because once you know that you are part of something bigger than you, like there's no one who can claim that they know the absolute truth and period. That's it. Like they have concluded, like you're playing a game, you just finish the game. I just beat the game. I just get the highest score. Life is more. It's more than that, and that comes like again with wisdom.
I want to get to the article when you talked about quotes. One of my favorite quotes, and during my lodge visits this year, I will be using this one. So I want to make sure it's attributed to you right now. When you say that our rituals and symbols are not the destination, but the path. And I felt like I made the same mistake when I was getting my third degree. I'm like, well, I guess this is where, my journey in Freemasonry ends. And an older brother came and said, no. It's the beginning that's happening right now. Like, I was like, whoa. So we talk a lot about reflection and truth seeking and ritual, and how, in your opinion, that quote so deep, how do we take these points and use them so that we can keep building on our path?
It's like literally when you sit in the lodge room, when you memorize a ritual, or when you partake, or even just observe what brothers do and so on. If you think in a more rigid way, so to speak, like what you see is literally what you get, then that's not really a good perspective over there, because you're just like, oh, so the purpose is for me just to memorize this piece of text. Okay, I'll memorize it, and then you just go recite it. You can memorize. You have the ability to do so, like the capability in your head to do so. But let's bring those words into life. When you look at the seats, for example, and at the brothers who are actually doing the floor work and all of this, it's like a story. It's like a story that is being unfolded and being told. Even though that you might hear it more than once, it's like sometimes, when you watch a movie and you love it so much, you just go ahead and watch it again, or a book that you read it again. And sometimes by doing so, you uncover a different thing that you might miss, or now you understand it in a different light, so to speak. It's when you choose that these words are to have meaning, and that meaning goes beyond the simple reciting or simple, saying them in the lot. When we say the 24-inch, gauge and stuff, okay, I can memorize that. But when you divide those and you go abide them, that's where the real challenge is. The real challenge is that when you live and abide by those in your own bedroom, in your own way to work, on your own, when you're by yourself, and that's the real challenge.
Yeah, that touches on the other quote that you had that I lifted out of the article, is that Freemasonry, you say, Masonry endures because its purpose is timeless, to help men live in alignment with brotherly love, relief, and truth. And it's interesting because I feel that too often we act and live in a world where we feel like no one's watching, although this is like probably the one point in the history of civilization where there's more cameras and eyes on you and every little thing that you're doing, even when you think you're doing nothing, than in ever before. But that's not really what's important. It's what the one who's watching all is watching and seeing in you, and how are you reflecting those principles every day. And that's what I really loved about the quote. Like, where did that come from you? The idea that Freemasonry is this thing.
It comes from the accountability part. Because if you don't believe in something that's bigger than you, if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in the Supreme Being, if you don't believe that you will be held accountable to your promises that you make, your obligations to all of that, then your words mean nothing. I really appreciate the upbringing where you're a man, your word is your bond, bond. Your word have meaning and it has weight. And it's only because of that we can actually establish any transaction, any business transaction, any whether it was in like a work-related matter, or even on a personal level. Because in the end, when things boil down to the core, like it's literally about your value. It's literally about your moral. Because if you get to do that, then when let's find a nicer way to putting it. When beep hits the fan, when things go wild,
Right.
like, that's when the true self come in. Like, that's when you know what you're really made of. Are you going to ditch your principles? Are you going to ditch your values because it got hard? Because it got a little bit tough? Or this is where you shine? You know what? Like for me, I play the piano, I play the guitar, like to, whenever there's time and I'm in the mood, whatever, I just go and start to, play and do these things. But when I have a very busy schedule, when I have work commitment, when I have whatever, I can say, you know what, it's okay. I'm not going to do it today. I have other priorities. But if I ditch my values, then my values are actually hobbies. It's something that you do whenever it's convenient. And that's where you draw the line, where you have the accountability, the things that goes beyond. I even choose my circles carefully. Like I care a lot about values, and you can see that obviously through experience when you deal with other people. But because motives, nobody can see motive. You will know your own motives, but people can see your action. And that's, they say actions speak louder than words and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was thinking of a conversation I had with Brother Angel Millar, many years back when he talked about virtue. And he's like, oh, okay, so in Freemasonry, you can get the title of, being a knight. But do you really act like a knight and every day? Are you being charitable? No, sir. And I did the same thing. I kind of laughed. He's like, but you start with the most basic title in Freemasonry, which is brother. And are you really being a brother to everyone that you come across with in life? And I'm like, wow, that is such a really profound statement. That's what we got to go out on. Brother Amer Abu-Houran, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Craftsman Online Podcast.
Thank you, brother. I'm really humbled. Thank you so much for this great opportunity. And also, it's a great, hopefully we will see more of each other again tomorrow. So, yeah.
Thanks to my guest this week, Brother Amer. If you enjoy this conversation as a Patreon subscriber, you're going to get some more on Thursday. Yeah, we'll be talking more about his article, In Search of Light, and the whole concept of truth and seeking it out beyond what we describe traditionally. We'll see you on Patreon for that Thursday. Interested in joining us? You can find the link to get started with Craftsman Online on Patreon. Yeah, 7-day trial. It's yours in the notes for this episode. I'm Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects next week on the podcast, the point within a circle. Oh, it is going to be such a good episode that I wish it was already Monday when we catch up with Worshipful Brother Cedric Jacobson. Until then, let peace and harmony prevail.